And that's what bothers you every single day, is that when he left this world, he was not in peace. And his passing was not an easy thing to see, because your father did not come to terms with the end of his life. He didn't come to terms with passing. And I keep hearing him saying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Your father goes to me, Matt, he goes, I would have never done this here in this world. No. He says, I was a private person. He says, I didn't believe in mediums. I didn't believe in all this shit. He says, I would have been pissed at my daughter for spending the money to come and see you if I was alive. He says, but God, does things change? He says, when you die, he tells me. I got to tell you that there's a lot that he has to talk about. Because first of all, when I'm connecting with him, he says to me, Matt, I wish that I took better care of my health here in this world. He says, I could have prevented this. I could have prevented this. He says, I didn't have to die like this.
Yes.
And what's so tough is he tells me that you and your mom are going through this survivor's guilt every single day, because you look back on the way that he ignored all the warnings and he ignored all the things that you talked about with him.
Yes.
He says to me, Matt, he says, there's one thing that I need them to know. He says, I was stubborn here in this world. He says, I was stubborn, I was thick-headed, and I never took responsibility for me, he tells me. And he goes to me, and for that reason, they would have never believed that I would have came through to a medium. He says, but the one reason why he's here is he sees the pain that you've been going through every single day since his passing. He says, and Matt, he says, the one thing that I have to tell my daughter is this. He tells me that he had several close calls with death before his passing. And he says to me, Matt, he says, God gave me so many warnings, he says, to get my life back together, to get my health back together. He says, but I never listened. He says, and the one thing that he's so upset about is seeing the hurt and pain that it left you with here in this world. He still tells me that you have a shirt of his that you kept here in this world.
Yes.
And he says to me, Matt, do you know that after my passing, I used to watch my daughter go and hold on to my shirt and just cry and be so upset? He says, and that's the last thing that I wanted. He tells me he was obsessed with cars here in this world.
Yeah.
And I see cars all around him, but they're like shitbox cars when I'm connecting with him.
He worked with car engines. Truck parts was his field.
Oh, no wonder why. Because I see when I'm connecting with him that here in this world, that's what he loved. He shows me like being in the garage with like parts all around him. And he would take like the shittiest car that wouldn't run, right? And that was like his favorite thing to do. He says, Matt, I made complaints about it when I was here. He says, but I loved it. He says, I loved my job. He also used to love his subs here in this world. Because he's showing me he's like working on cars, and I see him off to the side and eating like these long friggin' sandwiches when I'm connecting with him. Know that one of the things that he's acknowledging is this. He says to me, Matt, he says, I want her to think about me like that. He says, working on cars, eating my sandwiches. He says, minding my business, because that's what I did, he tells me. And he also tells me him being with his dogs. He loved his dogs here in the physical world. And he actually tells me 2 of them passed away, because he talks about having the 2 dogs on the other side. Yes. Listen, even the dogs make it to heaven. And he's actually telling me, what the hell, did the dog almost bite somebody?
Yeah.
Because listen, I don't want to put all your business out there, but I got to tell you what the other side. He goes, Matt, he showed me this dog in heaven, right? He's saying to me, I almost had an insurance claim with this one, he said to me. He goes, the woman tried to get it. She says, and your dad like was a little bit crazy here in this world. Because he's going to me, Matt, they almost like took my dog. They almost killed my dog. I'm like, who? He goes, but Matt, little did they know. He goes, listen, I don't care. I would have moved to Canada or some shit. He goes, that nobody would touching this dog.
That's right.
And he goes, I don't have to worry. The dog is dead. He's with me in heaven. He says, and there's nothing there's nothing else to worry about. So your father thinks this is so cool right now that he can talk to you in this way. And he's coming through in this reason. He's coming through like this for one reason, right? Because talking to the dead doesn't have to be a sad thing. And your dad's coming through in this way to let you know that even though you had to experience all this pain with his passing, he's at peace on the other side. And that's what bothers you every single day, is that when he left this world, he was not in peace. And his passing was not an easy thing to see. Because your father did not come to terms with the end of his life. He didn't come to terms with passing. And I keep hearing him saying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. But this is his way of acknowledging to you in heaven that he did make it to the other side, that he is there with that dog. He says, and Matt, please let her know that heaven is not different than here in this world. He says, the only thing that's different is this. He said, for once in my life, I actually feel what it feels like to be healthy again, because I never felt that here in this world. He says, and my health took so much away from me and you, from me and my wife. He says, and from my own health, he says, and from my own life here in this world. He says, so please know that who you saw before your dad died is not the man that he is now. And that's the reason why he had to come through and tell you this.